Hello again, this is Konstantin Papageorge, the creator of the digital method, and as always, today we'll talk about our human limitations because we want to reach perfection, we want to reach world-class specialization, but we have our limitations. For example, we are not the same individuals throughout the year or throughout one day or even throughout a single moment. So what can we do? We also need different stimuli throughout the years and the year and the days and the moments because we are different individuals each moment. We have different needs. So what do? We use training periodization. Generally speaking, we have two types of periodization: micro within sessions and macro between sessions. A relevant theme in practice in micro periodization are practice schedules, and in macro periodization are performance spirals, which I have introduced, and they can even be applied in some cases in micro periodization. So the variables I use in the performance spirals are contextual interference, which is a phenomenon that has to do with improved learning when we apply perturbations to the learning procedure, degrees of freedom that have to do with how many positions a certain system can take, and this is does not only apply to sports science, it's in chemistry as well, and different sciences. This has to do with the performance spiral that aims at developing our motor abilities, and this is about our physical conditioning performance spiral that employs the concepts of force and velocity. Degrees of motion or degrees of freedom, it's the same word. For example, it has to do with the way you view a system. It's not always absolute. For example, let's take the knee. The knee here, let's say in a macro scale, has 1 degree of freedom. It can go only in 2 directions. 2 directions mean 1 degree of freedom. However, in its micro examination, it can have 6 degrees of freedom, as is explained here. So we don't only have extension and flexion as this implies, so we also have this extension and flexion. We also have all other kinds of micro movements one can observe. Maybe they are of medical importance. Of course they are. In micro periodization, as we have seen on court as well, we have these 3 practice programs or schedules: random, serial, and blocked practice. Random has the most contextual interference effect and blocked the least. Serial is in between, and between serial and random practice we have motor worlds. Blocked practice can be varied or fixed, and this is called practice variability. So I can train something in blocked practice doing fixed practice as well, so I just repeat the movement again and again with no variation, or I can apply variations. For example, I can do blocked practice in my forehand, but I can do either down the line or diagonal or cross court. Okay, this is blocked practice. As I have also explained in the court, if, for example, I do blocked practice but I don't just mechanically repeat, but I want to see, for example, how many movements I can do before I lose, before my technique fails me. Then this is not exactly blocked, even if it looks like blocked. Okay, because I have a goal, then it's structured practice and so on. Then we have the distribution of practice. So I have today 3 hours available for me to work out. I can either work 3 hours in a row or 1.5 hours in the morning and 1.5 hours in the evening. What is better? Must practice is if I do 3 hours at once, whereas distributed practice is if I split these 3 hours during the day. It's better to do distributed practice for learning purposes, especially if I sleep in the meantime, because learning occurs during sleeping. And I also have the segmentation of practice, so I have a movement, a technique, and I can practice it as a whole, so the whole forehand drive from the starting position to the end position, or do a part practice, a partial practice, so just do a very specific segment of the movement, such as only from the hitting point, from the hitting position to the contact position, for example. Whole practice is considered to be better, but that doesn't mean that partial practice is completely useless. Okay, we should also use partial practice, let's say in a fashion, in a performance spiral fashion. So we should study sometimes some segments of the technique, but the important thing here is that whole practice should be our major concern. Now, the two performance spirals were presented in two papers. The first one in the Journal of Physical Education and Sport, the second one in the Hellenic Journal of Physical Education and Sport Sciences. So, let's see what they say. The physical conditioning performance spiral is based on these two variables, velocity and force, and the rationale is this. I start from point A, this is my initial capacity for performance, and I want to reach point Y, this is the expert performance. In proximal methods, not in distal methods, someone might think that, okay, so I should go from here and really struggle and pressure my performance and reach this point, but this doesn't happen in reality. I should go indirectly, not directly. I should go through different stages. Each stage should be a combination of different force and velocity. So, for example, I could have low velocities and low forces together with the other variable being low or high, and let's see it step by step. So I start from A, then following the spiral I go to B, I follow the spiral this way, as exactly as it goes, okay, in a spiral way. So in B I have B designates the capacity I have in that specific moment to exert the maximum amount of force. I can't exert any more than what B designates. So I have a medium type of speed. This is not zero. This is why I had also this figure here to show that we are not here in the zero of the actions. Okay, we are somewhere higher. Inside, I mean. So, so what do I have in B? I have the most force I can withstand um, with the velocity being medium. So I have sport loading, speed resisted training. Okay, so I may use parachutes, I may use dumbbells, I may use stuff like that. Okay, as I go on, I have medium force and the slowest possible velocity. The C designates slow practice. Now, slow practice has greatly been underestimated. I don't see many people. I mean, in Russian school, in various sports and in music, I do see slow practice, but in the West I see almost no slow practice at all. But slow practice is really, really important for many things, and it helps the conscious level of us, and how we consciously do the skills and how we consciously automate our movements and stuff like that. So in D, I have the least force and medium velocity, which is flow practice. So this means that my focus is on a movement that is flowing. I don't have anything to resist. I'm not trying to do things very fast or very slow. I'm just trying to feel the connection of all the parts of my movement. Then I go to E, where I have maximum velocity for that level at that specific point of time. And this is overspeed training, speed assisted training. So maybe, for example, I run downhills, or I use a way to extra accelerate my hand doing a swing. Okay, now when I go back, I see that my performance has improved a bit. Okay, so then I don't know what these vertical lines are. It's some bug of the program. So as I go back, I see that in the next cycle, my capacity to exert force is even bigger than it was the last time, for example, 1 week earlier. Okay, a note of caution here, this will not go indefinitely. At some point you will see that the gains will be very small, and these are called performance plateaus. Okay, so it's not every cycle the same. Okay, sometimes it would seem that it stops before it goes up again. The technique tactics performance spiral. It has the same rationale, but now the variables are degrees of freedom and contextual interference. So we have cases where we have both contextual interference and degrees of freedom high, or both low. But what does each one mean? As I explained here, we start at a certain point, for example here, and here both contextual interference and degrees of freedom are medium. So this is basic gameplay. As I move on, the next step would be to train statically, as if training a close motor skill, minimum contextual interference and degree of freedom. So keep, for example, your athletes performing for a short while the techniques in a blocked fashion. Block training is suboptimal if no random practice is introduced briefly after. So, training tennis as a closed motor skill. Then we follow the spiral and we get to the highest possible degrees of freedom and the lowest possible contextual interference. So, as you can see, I add something, okay, but I keep the other parameter low. So this is, for example, training all strokes with stable feeding. We feed our athletes smoothly, but we make them perform more than one hit action. So we start doing random practice, and we keep going, adding contextual interference and degrees of freedom, and we have degrees with increased perturbations and heavy cognitive load. Okay, so we take them to extreme levels. Here we proceed to train our athlete, trying, for example, to destabilize her because we have high contextual interference but low degrees of freedom. While we keep cognitive load decreased. Safety precaution here: the athlete must concentrate to keep balance and avoid injury. Drills with stable feeding and increased perturbations in this area, in this quadrille. So in here, they don't have so many choices because the degrees of freedom are low, but the contextual interference and perturbations are high. Okay, and this is the rationale of the technique, tactics, performance spiral. In general, I add something that makes things more difficult, and then I remove something else before I add them all together. But there is still a more complete performance spiral, and this is this one. This is a complete performance spiral. Now, what have I done here? I show you how I add in every cycle different tools. So I start just with motor words, then when I come back it's differentiated training, then when I come back it's differentiated self-training. The same goes here. So in the first, this is exactly the same with the previous one. Okay, I haven't done anything. It's again contextual interference versus degrees of freedom. So in number 4, what I do is I start gently with motor words and differential training. Then in the next cycle I add to motor words and differential training, I add differential self-training, and in the next cycle I also add perturbations. So it keeps becoming harder and harder. And when it comes to slow training, what is harder than slow training is slower training. Okay, and also this area. So this area designate performance, that is tactics. It's more relevant to tactics. When I train here, I train my tactics. Tactics is applied technique, and simplified tactics or form, technical form, or even style at some point, is this half of the spiral. So when I train in this area, I actually train my form more and not so much the tactics. Okay. I encourage you to go and read these 2 papers. Okay, because they have all these things and much more. And that's all about it. Thank you, and see you in the next presentation.